This is Abe Freetanzer from cinemadailyus.com, and I'm thrilled to be speaking with Julian J. Acosta about his work on the new film, The Seven Faces of Jane, which is the opening night film at the Bentonville Film Festival in Arkansas. How are you today, Julian?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. What is the vibe like there in Bentonville, Arkansas?
Very humid. You know, it's just a blanket of air that comes at you. The vibe here is really great, actually. I've really enjoyed my time here at the festival. Very welcoming people, some fantastic artists, and it's, of course, great to be around Geena Davis.
Of course. So what can you tell me about how you first heard about this film and what your reaction was?
Yeah, I first heard about this film through Roman Coppola. He gave me a call. I was in the mountains in Utah, mountain biking, huffing and puffing. He might have thought I was, more excited than he, I really was. No, that's not true. I was very excited about the project. He pitched the project to me as this project the 7 directors were going to direct, and that we all had a chance to really do whatever we wanted. And he really wanted us to have this freedom to express ourselves as unique individuals. And that's really what sold me. I mean, it would sound like such a cool project, and I could really make a story about who I am and what's important.
Were you familiar with any of the other filmmakers, or did you not even know who they were at that point?
I knew who a few of them were, and some of them, when I was asked to come on, some of them were secured and some of them weren't secured. But I knew a few of them. Roman and I worked together on short subject stuff like commercials and music videos. So of course, like Gia was, his niece was already signed on. So of course I know Gia from work. And a few others were, I think Ken maybe was signed on at the time. Is that right? There were a few others, but no, I've gotten to know a lot of these filmmakers through this process.
And so I know you have a lot of experience, with short videos and short films. Is that what this was, or did you tackle this differently because it was part of something bigger?
Yeah, I did tackle it a little bit differently. Through the process, Roman and I would talk about my script and our story. And sometimes he would say things like, "Oh, now remember, this was also a game where we had these like cards, right? Where we would say, okay, you're going to be 5th in line." Was that where I was? I think I was 5th in line. And because you're going to be 5th in line, Roman would say something like, well, realize that she's been on this journey of self-discovery. She's been exploring. She may have figured a few things out by then. So keep that in mind as you're writing your story.
And Gillian Jacobs obviously was in all of this, so she knew what was going on, but she wasn't supposed to share that with you, right? Usually the director's the one with the control, but in this case, I'm not so sure.
Right, but Gillian was very fantastic with keeping that stuff private. There was one moment where I said, hey, I want you to embody when they're up on the rooftop, as I'll say in my section. When they're up on the rooftop, I wanted to say, I want you to sort of embody and take in sort of things that you may have learned through this journey. And you can express that here up on the rooftop. But other than that, I didn't ask her anything. I'm kind of that kid who at Christmas time doesn't like to shake the Christmas presents or try to figure out what they are. I want the surprise. So I very much tried to keep that a surprise and play the game in that way. So yeah, Gillian did know, but I think that she really treated our sections as a unique piece. And that's what I wanted to do too. I tried to imagine that there weren't any other sections of the film and that I was the only one, just so that I can be hyper-focused into what I was doing.
Well, she is terrific, but I think the real standout performance in your film is Daniela Hernandez. That's just, can you tell me about working with her and just what she brought to the role?
Yes. Danny just auditioned and she was so great. It's interesting because at first we were trying to find somebody that was a bit more established, somebody that was in a film or a movie, and we were sort of looking around, but we had very little time to do it. And there were a few people that that did say that they were interested, and they just didn't fit, And I saw Danny's audition, and I've I've got to say I'm a little bit embarrassed about this, but one of the things that really drew me to her was like she looked like one of my sisters. She looked like she could be one of my sisters. I was like, oh my gosh, like how could I not cast this person? But it's it's scary to sort of because I wasn't able to have an in-person callback with her. So it's a little bit scary, like, oh my gosh, I'm just casting her from this one take. We were moving so quickly, and there were so many different pieces of this whole film as one big production that we didn't have a chance to do that. But oh gosh, she crushed it. Wasn't she so good?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And can you share more about the personal connection to the story that you wanted to tell here?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of me in this film. When I was younger, I actually had to move in with my grandmother, and me and my family. We lived in this tiny 2-bedroom house. I mean, I think it had probably 6.5 feet tall ceilings, and I shared a bedroom with my 2 sisters. And my parents slept on the couch in the living room. And we had, we spent a lot of time like trying to get out of this neighborhood here, the neighborhood that I first grew up in. And then we were sort of thrust back in this situation. And I remember feeling a lot like Rose, the character Rose in the film, where, oh my gosh, suddenly we're back with these old traditions, and how do I fit in? At the time, I was really into punk rock music and early emo music. And, it's like, I don't fit in here. I don't speak Spanish, and it was, it's taken really a lifetime to understand how I can fit in. I guess, maybe I'm still learning, right? But much like that, Rose had this moment where she started to feel like she fit in a bit, or she could be more of herself. And whatever that looked like, whatever that is.
Have you had a chance to watch the finished film?
I did, yeah. So we watched it last night. It premiered last night, and it was amazing. It was so cool. It was really great to hear. I mean, it's a very scary thing, right? And I was sitting sort of in the front row, but it was really great to hear people have reactions, right? To hear the oohs and the ahs and the laughs and that sort of thing. I almost wanted to look back and look at people's faces, but I was too nervous to do that. But in the Q&A section at the end of the film, it was really cool to sit there and look at the audience and see how it really affected them. And I loved seeing the emotion on their faces when you knew that there was some part of the film as a whole that really touched them. And that's what we're all here for. I mean, that's certainly what I'm here for. I want to make a film that moves somebody, that makes them feel something. I want, someone to watch some of my work and feel like they're not alone in the world. There's somebody on the screen that has had a similar experience, and hold on to that, because I've had that experience through cinema.
I actually think it flows very nicely, and I'm curious if anybody would happen upon it at some point without knowing that it was different directors, and whether you could think that it was all crafted by one person, because obviously there's all these little nice individual touches, but like, again, it flows and blends a lot more smoothly than I might have expected for so many different hands being part of it.
Right? Yeah, I would be curious about that too. If anybody does have that experience, I hope they reach out to me and let me know, because I would love to hear the story.
Well, so do you know what's next with this film? Is it going to other festivals? Is it being released? What's happening?
Yeah, I think that we are looking for some other festivals. We're looking for it to get released soon. So, I mean, it's sort of yes to all of the above. I would love to have more of these experiences, being out with the film, seeing, the reaction on people's faces, talking to people after the screening about their own personal experiences, because I love that sort of thing. So yes, I mean, I think yes to both. And I hope we have more of this like in-person stuff too.
And would you do this kind of thing again, participating in a group project like this?
It's really interesting because years ago when I was just getting started, I remember that film Parisian Time came out. Do you remember that film?
Oh, absolutely.
And I actually remember that was a dream to me. I was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine if I was ever part of something like this? I remember some of my favorite filmmakers being a part of that film, and just thinking, yeah, I would love to do something. And actually, I forgot about it for a while until we were done with the film. And as we were looking at the rough cut, that came into my mind. I was like, oh, wow, like what a great sort of mile marker in my cinematic journey, to say, oh wow, I got to do something like this with some really amazing filmmakers that I've admired in my own career, that I've followed their careers as well. So yeah, I mean, if this ever came to be again, I would jump on it in a second.
I'm remembering seeing Parisian Time in theaters with a friend, and during, I think it was the last scene with Margot Martindale, and she had like a terrible American, French accent. My friend started laughing uncontrollably, had to leave the theater because she just couldn't handle it. So that was definitely a fun experience. But they're not all like that. They're not all funny. They're, everything is different, and that's a really nice part of it.
Oh my gosh, I had this similar experience with that final piece. But at the end, if you recall, it gets very emotional. The very beginning, it's so funny, right? She has such a bad accent, but by the end, she talks about being alone and what it's like in her life. And oh my gosh, it like crushed me. It's like broke my heart in the best sort of way. I remember crying at the end of that film and just thinking, wow, how could that one short piece of the film be so powerful? It was really amazing work.
So what's next for you?
Oh gosh, I have a few projects in development right now. I have this film called Upriver at Mandalay Pictures with Jason Berman producing. It was a Blacklist script written by Antonio Macia. And it's a really great film about these kids that take a journey up the LA River from Compton to Los Feliz to return a stolen ring. And then I'm working on this other feature film with Matt Sheehy, a musician, called Aberdeen, and it's this film about a musician who's grieving after losing his mother, and he has like facing his own mortality, and decides to quit music and become a forester and move to Aberdeen, Washington, where he finds that his crazy neighbor has possibly opened a portal to another dimension. And then I'm working on one other episodic piece, also music piece, about Bakersfield, California, and this musician who's failing has to move back to Bakersfield, California, to try to be the next Buck Owens, the 60s media mogul and music star, but he has to move in with his family that has fallen on hard times in this like very Latino neighborhood, and his parents are Mormon. So it's a quite a few projects I'm developing. I'm looking forward to get shooting. So
those all sound very interesting and very different from one another.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, for more great content like this, you can subscribe to the Cinema Daily US YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Julian, for taking the time to speak with me. Best of luck with Seven Faces of Jane and with all these other fantastic sounding projects.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.